tried to do as little running as possible because it's not something they want to highlight. They definitely want to showcase their arm talent. And that's pretty much all he has to do here. Yeah, we know he has, significant mobile ability when perfectly healthy. We know that he's not going to be 100% for this private workout that he has scheduled, nor will he be perfectly healthy by the time the draft comes around. I mean, this is a serious injury he sustained during his last year at Alabama. It's going to take time to heal. And we've already stated on this podcast numerous times that several of us superfans believe that the Dolphins are still going to try to take him with the 5th pick, barring another team jumping in front of them. So all he has to do is just showcase his arm still works, which I don't think is that difficult, though I don't understand why the tape thus far in his collegiate career is not good enough. And he'll be on an NFL team still being drafted in the first round. And that's probably the only reason he's throwing is to still maintain whatever first-round status he has.
So Alabama's pro day is actually March 24th. So it'd be interesting to see if he does actually end up throwing during pro day or if he waits a couple more weeks to be a little bit more closer to 100%. Let's say we'll play the hypothetical game here, James. Let's say Tua goes out, he lights it up, he looks great. Doctors say he's going to be fine moving forward. Cincinnati is on the clock. We fully expect them to take Joe Burrow, but now maybe they've had a change of heart. Maybe they go, you know what? Joe Burrow's been great, but Tua is our guy. We're going to take Tua number 1 overall. Washington at number 2. Do they stay there to get Chase Young, or does that pick get traded so fast it's not even funny for somebody to get Joe Burrow?
Depends on what teams are willing to give up to get Joe Burrow and how far down Washington's willing to move if they still believe they can get Chase Young. The only thing that stands out is the trade the Niners and the Bears made a couple of years ago for Trubisky. Everyone knew the Niners were going to draft Solomon Thomas at number 2. They moved down one spot, still got their guy. The Bears moved up one spot. They took Trubisky. So you're looking at the teams behind Washington before Miami, because I can't see them falling too far back to still have a chance to get Chase Young. Because we're all in the agreement that that's who Washington's taking no matter what.
Right. Detroit is at number 3. And
yeah, you can't
I think
that
they have an underreported issue at quarterback.
But that's something I think they try to fix in free agency more so than the draft. It's more so just letting their quarterback get healthy and finding a more capable backup, which there will be plenty available.
So I think if somebody does move up and we have quarterback go 1-2, Detroit is going to take Chase Young at 3. So we know Washington can't move out of that spot if they really want Chase Young. And it's not Detroit that's trading with them to get a quarterback, because the Giants are at 4. The Giants are almost certainly going to take Chase Young if Chase Young's on board. Now you have Miami at 5. And the question is, do they take Tua here if Tua falls to this point? Or do they wait until later in the draft to take Tua? And again, I guess it just depends after that throwing session on how much the hype is over Tua at that point.
Look at last year with the New York Giants. They had 2 first-round picks. They used the first one on Daniel Jones, and everyone's like, why didn't you wait till your second pick to take this guy if this is the quarterback you wanted? Because no one had him rated, or at least very few people had him rated in the first round, let alone that high in the first round. And as the GM at the time said, when you see a guy you want, you go get him no matter where he falls on your draft board. If that's the guy that you want, you take him with the first available pick you have. This is the same situation with Miami. They can't wait till later and be like, well, Tua's going to be there because the other teams are worried about his injury history. I'm pretty sure if Miami passes on Tua, someone else is going to jump up to get him.
The Chargers pick next at 6. I think they too could be considering a quarterback at that particular point. Carolina at 7 is interesting.
Absolutely.
Because they have a new coach. And that's really the only reason why. But then not only do you have a new coach, let's think about this for Carolina. Not only do you bring in a new coach who's going to bring in his system, the way that he does things, now he makes a decision as to whether he wants to move forward with Cam Newton, if Cam Newton's even healthy enough to move forward with. We have no idea. We've got no updates on Cam Newton's health status to this particular point in time. You've got the Play 60 kid who showed some promise, fell off. We had the rookie Will Grier, who really didn't do much of anything, quite honestly, and his limited snaps at the end of the season. Carolina, I think, has a ton of options at this point. They could go with another quarterback. They could draft a quarterback here at this point, trade away Cam Newton for some value, whatever value they can get out of him. To me, I think Carolina is a very interesting team at number 7.
Absolutely. And considering that we just had I'm not going to say shocking, but surprising announcement that Luke Kuechly is retiring, they're in full rebuild mode. I mean, Luke Kuechly was the heart and soul of that defense. Last year, they cut loose Thomas Davis, who went to the Chargers. At this point, they just need to get younger fast and bring in, promising talent to build around the young skills. This is a team going forward that's going to be built around Christian McCaffrey. So I don't have high hopes in Cam Newton playing for Carolina next year. Will he play for somebody next year? Absolutely. A quarterback of his caliber, his tenure in the league and what he's done and what he's still capable of doing, definitely is going to be playing for someone next season. I'm not sure it's going to be Carolina, but I can see them drafting a quarterback.
Arizona doesn't need a quarterback, clearly. Nope. Jacksonville is an interesting team. I don't think they need a quarterback. It's just going to be whether they move forward with Nick Folk or Gardner Minshew.
Bowles.
Oh. Cleveland, I mean, you could make an argument they need one, but I doubt they're going to go with a quarterback. The Jets aren't going to go with a quarterback. I know a lot of people have Oakland here with a quarterback, and there's been a lot of conversation in our Slack group about Oakland's desire or lack of desire and Gruden's, foaming at the mouth of a rookie quarterback. I don't know if Oakland necessarily goes quarterback here. I don't think they need to.
They don't need to, but again, next year is their first season in Las Vegas, and make a big splash by drafting a big name quarterback. Do they go up and get one? I don't recall how much draft capital they're going to have this year as far as picks that they acquired by trading away Khalil Mack and Antonio Brown and a number of other players that they hype big names that they've jettisoned over the last 2 years to just acquire draft capital. Plus their positioning, that puts them, 12th this year, 13th?
They're picking 11.
11, okay. So still picking the top half of the draft. Do they have enough to move up far enough to make a dent, say, the top 10 and take the quarterback? Because they have to definitely give up something. And obviously you're thinking they're going to trade a pick and Carr if they decide to move up to draft a quarterback. But then in that, because now you can't let this guy sit. He has to start.
It's too bad that Derek Carr doesn't have a link to Rule, because that would be an interesting trade, right? Oakland and Carolina.
My gosh.
Let's swap
trade
quarterbacks.
Rule for Cam Newton. That'd be interesting.
Carr for Cam Newton. Here, we'll give you Carr and our pick. You give us Newton and your pick. Doesn't work that way. That's a Madden trade. That's a Madden trade if I ever heard one. This is where things get really interesting. 13 is Indy, 14 is Tampa Bay, and 15 is Denver. So in Indy, Jacoby Brissett is there. He's very cheap. He's very cap friendly. It doesn't cost them a lot to have him still be a bridge type quarterback, and you can draft a quarterback at this particular point. Tampa Bay has to make a decision on Jameis Winston, whom, yes, he threw for 5,000 yards. Yes, he threw for a ton of touchdowns, but he also threw for a ton of interceptions. And that really hurt the team. And then Denver. Who knows what Denver wants to do? Is Drew Lock really the answer, or do they want to get another quarterback to throw in the mix? It's a very interesting spot here in the draft at 13, 14, 15.
Yeah, and look, the only one of those teams I can truly get behind as far as standing pat on the quarterback is the Colts. I know their GM has said that they're going to explore options and all available options as far as the quarterback position. I think, if anything, they need a more capable backup in case Brissett gets hurt. They might also want to shore up some positions on the offensive line because Costanza might retire this offseason. He's mentioned, leaving the game early. We mentioned Kuechly earlier with his surprise retirement. Other players have come out over the past couple of years and thought about retiring before the age of 30. Costanza is one of those guys. But they have a lot that they can do because, right now they have a lot of young talent playing extremely well on either cheap contracts or rookie deals. So they're getting the best for very little money right now. As far as the Buccaneers, they kind of want Jameis Winston back, but they're not willing to pay what he might be asking for. And while I'm all in favor of players getting as much as they can, sometimes as a player, you need to know what the market really is for you, not for everybody else. And there's a big difference. I just don't understand, like, Tennessee right now. First they were all in on Winston, and now it's kind of, we're not really all in. We're looking at things.
It's an interesting time for these teams, for sure. I don't need to go through the rest of the draft to talk about other teams that need quarterbacks. My team is going to need a quarterback. They've got an interesting offseason ahead. They pick at 23. They're not going to get one of these top flight quarterbacks because they don't have the draft capital to move up at any particular point to do so. Pittsburgh, maybe they need a quarterback. They don't pick in the first round. Their pick belongs to Miami. Chicago is all in on Trubisky. They're not going to move on from a quarterback. They also don't pick in the first round, so they wouldn't have an opportunity anyway. The Rams and Houston also are the other two teams not picking in the first round. Tennessee is going to either have to pay Ryan Tannehill a whole bunch of money, or they're going to have to do something else at quarterback. Tennessee's offseason situation has just got very interesting because Ryan Tannehill basically made himself the Case Keenum of this year. It's that simple. I would not want to give – I don't want to give Ryan Tannehill a whole bunch of money to be my starting quarterback, but I don't have a choice.
You have a choice. It's just whether you want to make it or not. So, it's not like you're in no man's land. The lesser of two evils really is to sign Ryan Tannehill, or you decide to bring back Marcus Mariota because he sat on the bench for 10 games and saw what Ryan Tannehill did and realized, oh, that's how I'm supposed to play quarterback.
Oh, boy. You mentioned the Luke Kuechly retirement, and there were some other retirements that occurred this past week. Luke Kuechly was a bit of a surprise. He's only played in the league now. I think he had an 8-year career.
8 years.
And he hasn't said why he's retiring, but I think one can naturally assume the number of concussions that he's suffered is something that weighs heavily on him. And you can't blame him for walking away from the game that is, he's had a lot of trouble in staying on the field. You would hope that there are other players, Jordan Reed, who would take this as sort of a good idea, right?
Yeah. And you mentioned Jordan Reed. And yes, look, we clown on Neal last 2 seasons about pretty much by week 8, half his roster from opening day is on injured reserve for whatever reason. Reed has been that guy. This year was also Vernon Davis, who spent the rest of the season on IR due concussions as well. But quickly jumping back to Kuechly, his first 3 years, as good as he was, he still missed about a third of those games over his first 3 seasons because of concussions every year. And while he didn't miss any time over the last 2 seasons, it's still worrisome for him because he's of the concern now of, has he developed CTE in some way, shape, or form.